I want to talk about learning music. As someone who plays a couple instruments myself, I understand that it can be a pretty intimidating task when you learn professionally or just on your own. But I want to talk about why it's probably a lot easier and less scary than you might think. A lot of people seem to think that in order to learn music, you need to either be gifted from birth or spend your entire life studying theory and practicing day in and day out 24/7. I don't really think that either of those things are exactly true. Yes, for some people, it might come easier than others. But for most people, I think it's pretty normal to not be able to pick up an instrument and immediately be able to play 1,000 songs. I started playing music in the 5th grade. I chose to start with the trumpet, and I played all the way through high school. And in that entire time, I learned almost zero theory. Flash forward to 2018, I ended up actually getting my first ever bass guitar. It took me a while to realize that I kept comparing myself to these amazing musicians and other guitar and bass players, and it was holding me back. I inevitably realized that they had to start somewhere too, right? Obviously they did. Everyone has to start somewhere. And it made me realize that they didn't even have the resources that I have now, or that you have. Going into it, I had basically a first grader's level of music knowledge. I could tell you what a note was, and the difference between an 8th and a 16th, but the most important part was that I knew that I could play songs. So I started learning music that I really enjoyed. There are so many fantastic different websites and YouTube channels that anybody can access as long as they have a computer. Obviously, having access to the internet is incredibly important for so many different reasons. Learning music online is definitely more of a luxury, but I would still highly recommend it to anybody who's even remotely interested. The absurd amount of free resources that literally anybody can access at any time with an internet connection and a computer kind of makes it hard to not recommend this to someone. Learning music online is also super flexible. You can choose any time or day that works for you, whenever you want. Sit down and learn at your own pace. There's also so much different variety that you can find online. That makes it so that you can find any new way to approach something that you might be struggling with or just want to learn from experts that can be accessed at any point in time, anywhere in the world, by anybody. Now, obviously, I understand that not everybody has access to the internet, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, most great musicians today actually learned without the internet at all. They would just pop on a song and listen to it and try and play along with it. They'd mess up from time to time, but that's kind of how you develop your own style. And it's something that I still think is pretty important today. Here's a video clip now of John Petrucci, the lead guitarist for the band Dream Theater, speaking on that exact situation.
Here's what I think they're losing, and like I'm going to totally sound like that old guy, but it's like, we used to have to walk 2 miles to school.
Uphill both ways.
Right, uphill both ways. So it's like the purpose of those kind of conversations were that there was a suffering to the process, to get there. And so when you got there, it was so much more rewarding, and that you felt like, oh my God, I get it. Like, this is crazy. This took me, how many years or whatever. And the fact that there's instant knowledge, maybe they're losing maybe they're missing out on whatever that process of struggling does for you.
What about
right?
what about their ear too? Actually having to sit there, drop a needle, and be fast.
Good point.
How good are people's ears if they're just learning from tutorials all the time?
As you get better on the instrument, you start to recognize what things are. And I had this conversation with Tosin, because he's one of these guys where when I hear him, I don't recognize what he's doing. And it's like, that's such a rare thing to find with all the guitar players.
So that's why I think everybody should and can learn an instrument, whether it's from a professional teacher or just learning in your own living room.